Fotric sent me this acoustic imager for review, and turning it on and looking at the screen, it only ever shows me one source of sound, but I know sound is really not that straightforward. And pointing at the ceiling, it shows me that my various LED bulbs are emitting ultrasonic sound, but only one at a time. But if I click on this here and select all sources, that looks rather chaotic because there's a lot of sound sources in this room. Just most of them I can't hear because they're ultrasonic. And I prefer the chaotic view because sound bounces around everywhere. It's like being in a hall of mirrors. And we're just so used to the sound bouncing around. It's the room ambience. But if you've ever stepped into an anechoic chamber, it feels kind of weird having a room so dead sound-wise. Now this gadget doesn't have a video record mode, so I rigged up this thing so I can show video of it. And walking around, pretty much all of my LED bulbs emit some kind of ultrasonic sound. At least I can't hear the sound. And on the right here we have a spectrum analyzer display, sort of a crude one, and I can select which frequencies I want to be selective to. So if I set it low so that we're only seeing audible frequencies, then we're not seeing so much coming out of the LEDs because those are all above the audible frequency, otherwise it would be driving us nuts. And the sound isn't from the LEDs, but from the switching converter that makes the right voltage for the LEDs. I got a couple of LED bulbs here and I'm just covering them with socks so they're not blinding. And looking at these LED bulbs, we can see all kinds of other sounds behind the workbench from these adapters. Also, I'm talking, but if I restrict the frequency to just what the LEDs put out, which I'm pretty sure is this peak here, now we see mostly just the LEDs. And with all these high frequency noises coming from all of our electronics, and pets can hear a lot higher than we can, are we driving our pets insane? But actually, it's probably not that bad. Because this thing is actually quite sensitive, because when I make this noise, that'll pick it up. So that sound was neither loud nor annoying, so maybe those electronic sounds aren't so bad for your pets either. But I was looking around and there's no such thing as a low-cost, high-frequency sound tester, because this thing here is about $1,000, so you don't just buy it for the heck of it. So the best you could do is just to put the sound source next to your pet's ear to see if they get annoyed by it. Now testing the spatial resolution of this thing with two little speakers outputting 2 kilohertz. These are emitting the same signal in phase, and it sees them as one, and I have to separate them quite a bit before it realizes that's 2 sources. But now if I change the frequency to something higher, 10 kilohertz. It can separate them sooner, and if I go even higher, let's go 18 kilohertz. Now it has quite an easy time separating those 2 sources. In fact, it's become quite directional. I think this one is a bit weaker at the really high frequencies. So this is the size of a wavelength at 2 kilohertz in the air, and if we go to 10 kilohertz, they're a lot smaller. So it's no surprise that it's better able to resolve at higher frequency, although I'm surprised it's able to resolve 2 sound sources at 2 kilohertz because the area of this microphone arrangement is maybe half a wavelength at 2 kilohertz. So it must do quite a bit of signal processing to infer that there's 2 sound sources. And then of course, the higher the frequency, the more phase difference we get coming from different directions. And if we get to something like 50 kilohertz, which is half of its maximum frequency, if these were arranged in a grid, potentially the phase difference would repeat with the microphone spacing, which is why they're arranged in such a random looking arrangement. There's 64 microphones on this one. The fancier version of this one has got over 100 microphones. And this one is rated to go from 2 kilohertz to 100 kilohertz. For lower frequencies, it probably just becomes too hard to separate different sound sources with this big a microphone arrangement. Although Fluke has one with one that's twice as big, but that one also costs 10 times as much. Although testing this one with a 1 kilohertz sine wave coming out of a speaker, it has no problem locating that. It probably just can't resolve different ones at the same time at that frequency. I've just switched to polarity for one of the speaker wires, so it puts out exactly the opposite signal as the other one. And now with the speakers close together, it actually thinks that's 2 separate signal sources. And now it picks up mostly this one. So I got this one correct now, and if I get this one close, it actually thinks it's coming from further away. And overall, it just thinks the speaker spacing is bigger than it is. And sometimes when you see portable stereos advertised as having some kind of enhanced stereo separation, well, they just basically amplify the difference between the two channels, which makes it seem like the sound sources are further apart in terms of stereo separation. Now, for really low sounds without a lot of high frequency components, it doesn't work very well. So the sound of this HRV system, it doesn't pick up. So from this, picking up nothing other than the sound of my voice bouncing off of it. And right now I've got this dehumidifier running, but it can't spot that because there's noise coming from this fan here. But if I turn that off, then it can locate the dehumidifier here. But interesting thing about this fan is, let's turn it back on. And we can see noise coming from the blades, but let's change it so we're actually looking at ultrasonic sounds. And now we see noise coming from the blade tips all around it instead of the center of the blades. So that tells me there's some kind of high frequency wingtip vortices on the blades here. It's a very cool thing to see. And now we're looking if there's leakage in this hose coupling. And look, I can sense something there, but this blocks it because that's not from the hose. That's from LED bulbs on the ceiling, and the floor, even though it's not smooth, is like a mirror to the sound. But even with all the background noise, if I just let this squeeze out a little bit of sound, that locates it really well. Even though that sound is really faint, I can't hear it right now. So it's really quite good at locating sounds in the presence of ambient noise because it's got 64 ears and I only got 2. But this dust collector hose has got a leak. There's the dust collector going, making lots of noise. And here's my leak, which I wouldn't really be able to hear. And let's fix that. Now there's a variety of sounds that my jointer makes, and while I was waiting for this gadget I was thinking, I wonder if I could just kind of pick up on those sounds just with a hose by listening to it like this, and I made an adapter so I can show you what it sounds like with the camera. And of course the acoustic imager picks up all those sounds too. And this is a winter tire and it's got a leak, and I haven't been able to find that with soap and water or anything. So I tried this on it and this doesn't pick it up either. It's a really slow leak and I only have to pump it up every couple of months, so for that sort of thing the acoustic imager doesn't work either. Now this is a brand new product type. I was going to do the video on it sooner, but they didn't actually quite have it ready, and it's got shortcomings. No video mode. When you take a picture it's only a 640 by 480 screenshot, and it has a handy standby mode which it comes back out of very quickly, except even in standby mode it gets quite warm, so it drains the battery very quickly. So I learned when I'm not using it, pull the battery, because that way I can be sure it's off. You can turn it off from the screen as well, and the saving grace is it actually comes back fairly quickly after a cold start. There, and it's ready to use. But it is really cool, all the things that it does pick up, all the ultrasonic noises I had no idea were there. Just kind of highlights, oh yeah, there's an adapter here, there's another adapter here, there's another high frequency thingy here. And even for audible noises, if it's a high-pitched noise, it can be very hard to locate that by ear. And even for sounds that are easy to locate, in the presence of ambient noise, it's hard. And this thing usually picks them up quite well, where you can't locate it by ear because there's too much other noise. And a couple of days after filming this, going to our messy garage, I felt like, is there some kind of hiss, or do I have tinnitus or something? Couldn't locate it, but it's like, hey, I got a gadget for that. And looking around with this thing, I didn't really pick up anything either, other than my voice bouncing around right now, but occasionally I would see something pop up near this pipe right here, this pipe here, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember we were watering the garden. And so this valve wasn't fully closed, so not a plumbing disaster, but it could have been, and it does show up here. Can't really hear it with the ambient noise, but this picks it up. And before Acoustic Imagers, Fotric has actually been a maker of professional thermal imaging solutions, and they're also getting into consumer space with that, with this camera here. And the innovation with this one is a tripod mount. Why hasn't anybody else done that before? Only problem with this one right now is the app won't run on my 3-year-old Android phone, so I can't show it to you working.